Welcome, everybody, to the first ever edition of the Cleveland Browns Draft Special for Believeland Media LLC and Den of the DAWGS podcast. I'm your host and mediator, Kevin Sledz, and we have our cast of characters here tonight with us. First of all, we've got the Den of the DAWGS co-hosts, Double R Ruben Rodriguez. How you doing, Ruben?
I'm doing well, Kevin, man. Good to see everybody here.
Yeah, it should be a good time. And of course, we got Mr. Clarence Wilson, the other co-host of the Den of the DAWGS. What's up, Clarence?
Living. Ready to get to this draft. It's going to be really weird because I don't remember the last time we didn't have a first round pick.
Yeah, it's definitely different than it has been in the past.
Been a while, man.
And from the All Things Cavalier podcast and the new Lake County Captains beat reporter, Mr. Joey Schneider.
What's going on? I don't like how you say that with a smile on your face.
Hey, it's cool. I'm happy.
I'm excited. I can't wait to get, they a little too cold today for the big boys. I don't know why, but get back at it tomorrow. Really excited. Finally got over COVID. Can't wait for the draft. Got a very exciting time here in Cleveland with all sports, Believeland Media. Can't wait to talk about it today.
And we also have from the Mic Drop podcast, co-host Joe Ewell. How you doing, Joe?
I'm good. Excited to be here. Ready for this draft to get going.
And last but not least, we have our Believeland media writer, Mr. Josh Ungar. How you doing, Josh?
Doing well. This is probably one of the more unusual drafts I've going to watch in the past several years.
It is, and it's weird because just sitting at work this week talking to my buddy, it's like it doesn't even feel like draft week. We have no first round pick. That build up, that excitement kind of isn't there that's been there in the past. Don't get me wrong, it's a good position to be in with the roster we've put together. Obviously, we've given up the first round picks this year and next year for Deshaun Watson. So it's going to be different this year, but definitely looking forward to it though.
And the year after that.
Yeah.
And the year after that.
I mean, the other interesting thing with this draft also is, like, by this time, we usually know, like, okay, this player is going to be the number one overall pick. From all indications, we still don't know who the number one pick is going to be. I don't know about you guys, but I'm hearing several names being floated around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So almost reminiscent of 2018, where I think it was the day of is when things started to leak about Baker being the top pick. But up until that point, we had heard Baker. Well, we had heard Darnold. Basically all the quarterbacks that year.
Allen.
Allen. We heard all these different things. So it's kind of similar to 2018, except that there's not going to be a quarterback taken at the top of this draft unless it's a huge shocker.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Like, is in 2018, we knew it was going to be a quarterback taken number one overall. We just didn't know who.
Which one? Yeah.
Right. Whereas with this draft, it could be an offensive lineman taken number one overall. It could be a defensive lineman, defensive tackle, whatever you want to call them. So it's more open-ended.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
All right, so looking at the Browns, the team needs, obviously we know wide receiver right now, they could still use maybe one or two guys, defensive end, depending on who resigns and who doesn't. So just kind of give me your guys' thoughts on the team needs. We'll start with you. We'll just go down the line. Joey Schneider, go ahead.
I think obviously they need a wide receiver to pair with Amari Cooper. I think DPJ is going to have a really big year. He's going to have Watson throwing to him. I think that, maybe someone like Schwartz could benefit from it as well, but I really think that they need to get another wide receiver. And I don't know if it's going to be through the draft or if it's going to be through free agency, but obviously that is a need. Defensive line, we're really hoping that they're going to re-sign Jadeveon Clowney. They definitely need another defensive end. They need a defensive tackle. They could use another linebacker. And I think they're good. I'm going to say that they're probably good right now in the defensive backfield. I don't think they need another corner or safety. We brought back Ronnie Harrison, we got Del Pitt, and Newsom. Ward got his contract extended, and well deserved. John Johnson III, obviously. So I mean, you could go through the entire defensive backs, but I think we're good there. Obviously, I think maybe later in the draft a backup center, or maybe just signing one. It just depends. But a need I think that we could address maybe with our second, third, or fourth round pick would be tight end. We got rid of Austin Hooper. We got Njoku, who we're hoping is going to have a big season as well. We still got Harrison Bryant, but Stefanski likes his tight ends in his offense and in his scheme. So there's a lot of really good tight ends that you're going to see going in the third and fourth round. I think the Browns could probably pick up a really good one. So I would say receiver, defensive line, and probably tight end, maybe linebacker. So we'll just see what's there.
All right. So Clarence, how you feeling about the roster right now? And what are you looking for the Browns to add?
Basically kind of the same stuff that Joey was talking about, although I will plug in that linebacker. That's something that they need. They need another guy who can tackle, stop the run, and still cover as a linebacker. It's nice having JOK, but we're a little iffy at other places. At 44, it's probably pretty been well documented. I'm a big on wide receiver at 44. There needs to be another wide receiver on this squad who can make plays. DPJ might be that guy. I'm hoping he's that guy. I've talked enough about Schwartz and how the last few games of the season they figured out a way to get him the ball, whether it be on reverses or quick screens, to use some of his speed. But I don't see either one of those guys as the clear-cut number two. So the Browns need a clear-cut number two, whether it be via the draft or free agency. There's a few guys on the draft board that might be there at 44 who I would not mind seeing them take. But, as Joey said, we still have some other holes. We still have defensive tackle. I've heard some stuff that, maybe Jadeveon is possibly already, he's ready to be signed. They're just basically toying with people and not to tip their hand as to who they may be looking at 44. So they won't announce him being signed until after. But if not, definitely defensive end. And then, as I just said, linebacker. So I'm just happy that it's not one of those drafts that, for the Browns that we've seen so many times where they're like, what are the needs? And you're just like, every damn thing. So I'm just happy we're not there anymore.
Right. Yeah. And Clowney's notoriously a late signer. So it won't be a surprise if he's already got the deal done, just not announced yet. So Joe Ewell, I know you're a big draft guy. What are you looking at position wise, biggest needs for the Browns?
I agreeing with everybody else for the most part with wide receiver and D line, kind of looking at the second round. If the Browns, if they know that they're going to go, Clowney, if they know they have that deal unlocked, then I would definitely be going wide receiver. But I really do like the kid out of USC, Drake Jackson. I like him a lot if you're gonna use your second round pick for him. And I think that there's a lot of guys in the third round, since we do have 2 picks in the third round. I think there's a lot of wide receivers in the third round that are left on that we can get and that can become a number 2, that whether it was injuries or their quarterback shifting from, a Heisman candidate to not having one, whatever the situation may have been in college, I think that there's a lot of, diamonds in the rough in the third round.
Yeah, this is definitely a deep draft for receivers and defensive ends, edge rushers, which are 2 of our biggest needs. So Double R, how you feeling?
Hey man, it's you guys are nailing it on the head, but I'm trying to outthink Barry, and none of us can do that. If we had a crystal ball, it'd just make this a whole lot easier. But it's as everybody's been listening to me chirp for the last 5 months about defense, wide receiver. Yeah. And I'm trying to look through their roster. They love that kid, Bradley, that they re-signed. Oh, he's a big kid. I'm not saying he's going to be a number 2, but he'd probably be in a good, nice number 3 if you leave DPJ in there and go on free agency. Maybe Landry comes back. Who knows? But Christian Harris is my guy, man. I see him dropping, the kid from Alabama, linebacker. You pair him with JOK. But one thing that we got to understand here, guys, is that you have to look at our opponents, the teams that we can't beat because we can't stop their running game. The Ravens, the Steelers, when they want to run the football, we can't stop anybody. We got to deal with Justin Herbert again this year, who torched the crap out of us. Now we got Brady on the schedule this year. You got Josh Allen on the schedule in Buffalo this year. Yeah, so we could score 35, 36 points a game, but if you give up 37, that doesn't work out very well. Christian Harris, I don't know, this guy's name just keeps coming up that he may be there. If he's anywhere out of the first round at 32, between 32 and 44, I think Barry's going to jump up to get him, because he knows that if you look at the last few games of last year, how the defense finally gelled together. It took a little bit of time for all these stars to come together and to align just right. If you add to this defense and make this defense better than when it was at the end last year, it's going to pay dividend. The Rams proved with offensive weapons alone don't win you a Super Bowl. They had to have those defensive studs in there too, man. So wide receiver, yeah. If it's hard if Treylon Burks drops, and that's Clarence's guy. That's going to be hard. That's going to be hard as hell to pass on that. If Pickens is there and Burks, I mean, yeah, screw you, Ruben. I'm going to get. Yeah, I get that. I'll be okay with that. But the chances of those two guys dropping are slim. And even for Christian too, it is slim. But if they're there, I'm sure they have a plan. And I wish to God I knew what it was, because I'm looking at the second and third round steals here too, because there's a hell of a lot of good football players. David Bell, kid from Purdue, will probably be a third round pick, and he may be available at wide receiver as well. He's a big kid. He's a slot receiver. He's a guy that's going to get you the first. He's not a speed guy, but he's got big hands. There's a ton of players out there, man. It'll be exciting to see just what happens, how this unfolds. There's a lot of wide receiver talent out there this year.
Yeah, this is one of the deepest wide receiver classes in a long time. So Josh, how you feeling position-wise for the Browns' needs?
So I hear what you guys are all saying, but for me, number one by a huge margin is wide receiver. Because to me, we don't have a number one wide receiver right now. I don't view Amari Cooper as a number one. I view him as a number 2. I've got DPJ as our number 3, and I view Anthony Schwartz as number 4. I think the jury is still out on him. So with that number 44 pick, go right now. The Browns have a group of wide receivers that's pretty versatile, but for me, they don't have that big physical wide receiver. And I feel like that's an important aspect of the NFL passing game. I know you guys, a lot of you disagree with that, but I stand by my statement on that. So for me, if the wide receiver from Penn State, Jahan Dodson, is available at 44, it's a no-brainer. You take him. I would even trade up to get him. I think he would be that big in this offense because he gives you that big physical wide receiver where you can play him on one side, Amari Cooper on the other. So you have that like contrast in style.
Dotson's smaller than Amari Cooper.
I was gonna say Johnson's like 5'11", I thought. Or something.
Yeah. Dotson's 5'11", 185.
He's a speed guy.
He's very fast. Cooper is like 6 foot, 6'1", and he's thick, but he's one of the best route runners in the league. And that's where I will 100% disagree with you. Amari Cooper is definitely a number 1 receiver. He had a down season last year. where he only had like, I think just under 900 yards receiving. Before that, he had like 5 or 6 straight 1,000-yard receiving years. So I think he's absolutely the number one for the Browns at a number one in the league. But I still don't think that should dissuade the Browns from taking the best player available, whoever that is, on their board, whether that's a receiver or whether that's another position.
Right, I understand that. And I didn't realize that Dodson was smaller than Amari Cooper, so I appreciate you telling me that. But I've watched a lot of Penn State games. And when I have watched them, I've always viewed Dodson as being more of that physical type of receiver, not as much of a speed guy. So that's why I would still say to take him to play that role.
Yeah, I would never, and based on what you said, so you're saying that Jahan Dotson would then be, since you said your opinion, Amari Cooper is not a number one, so we're just saying that Jahan Dotson would be our number one?
Correct.
Okay.
All right. So my opinion, I want to go wide receiver at 44. I want to get Deshaun Watson as many weapons as possible, and we'll start going into I know a couple of you gave names for the 44th pick, but I like George Pickens out of Georgia. I don't know if he's going to be there. I know he has the ACL injury, which is going to cause him to slide. If not for that injury, I mean, he'd be right at the top of this receiver class, and he's got all the tangibles and the potential to be a number one receiver. But again, I know he's kind of ranked in the 28 to like 32 range. So he's a guy you might have to trade up a bit to get. But he's the guy I like the best at this point. But like we said, it all depends on what happens free agent wise. You know, we haven't heard anything about Jarvis Landry. We heard some rumors about Will Fuller, following Watson here. So he's still available. We don't know if either one of those guys are, in the fold, kind of like Clowney. So, it's going to be interesting. I think who they pick at 44 is going to tell us probably who's going to resign or who's going to sign.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's hush hush, Kev. You're right, man. They're tight-lipped about all of this. They're not going to, I don't know if we tell you we signed Clowney, then is it going to have other teams think that this is who the guy they're really going after? And they want to be tight-lipped about that too.
Right.
It's Harry's way of doing things, man. I mean, we have to trust what he's doing.
Yeah.
In the same breath, you got Pickens, who a lot of people are saying has a lot of red flags. I kind of feel like that's being thrown around by a lot of GMs just so he'll fall.
Just so he'll fall down. Right.
Yeah, you don't hear about that stuff until right before the draft, and that's kind of how you can kind of figure out a lot of it's BS. Pickens is, I mean, he's 6'3", he's 200 pounds, he's very fluid, he's got a ridiculous catch radius.
Yeah.
He never really had a breakout season. This was supposed to be his breakout year before he got hurt, but I think that he has all the tools to be a really good receiver. I kind of compare him maybe to someone like a slightly taller Jerry Jeudy. If he was healthy, he probably would have had a season like that. So Pickens would be great, but
I'm hoping Jameson drops.
Jameson Williams.
If I have a choice,
Williams is going in he'll probably go in he's definitely going first round. I wouldn't be surprised to even see him go in the top 20. Again,
that injury of his, it's no joke.
It's just you know what, an ACL tear now is not what it used to be. 25 years ago, an ACL tear was almost the end of your career. An ACL tear now is basically 9 months on the shelf. He might be back. I mean, they're saying that he could be back as early as maybe week 3 or 4, and but 100% by like week 7. So honestly, I don't see him fall. I don't think there's a chance he falls out of the first round, and I still think he goes in the top 20.
If he goes out of those first 32 and nobody's picked him, I can assure you Barry's going to jump up and try and get that kid.
If not for that injury, he's the number one receiver on the board.
If not for that injury, he's probably the second or third player picked in this draft.
Here's my take on this whole thing with the wide receivers. I feel like there is a bit of a gap because you at the top you have Drake London, the wide receiver from USC. You have Chris Olave, and I believe there's Jamison Williams, and I believe there's one other wide receiver from
Garrett Wilson.
Garrett
Wilson and
Yeah, thank you.
Treylon Burks. Those
So
Yeah.
yeah,
those are the top five. If you kind of want to go in order, it would probably go Williams before the ACL tear would be one. Garrett Wilson would be two. Olave 3, Drake London 4, Burks 5, and that's
Right.
that's just that's based on stats and then you got a lot of receivers after that.
don't
but-
forget John Mechie.
Well,
John Mechie.
I'm putting him in that. He's still in that second tier. I think there's a couple of guys ahead of him.
Yep.
But he's someone who I would absolutely love to nab too. I just don't know if he would be the right guy at 44. But sorry, Josh. Yeah, but yeah, those are the top five. I actually don't view Drake London in that top five personally. I think he's big. He's 6'5", 6'4", 6'5", and he's fast. And a lot of people, they want to find that unicorn at wide receiver, like the Randy Moss, the DK Metcalf, and say, oh, he's going to be good. But you watch his film, and I think that he's actually probably more around the 10th best receiver in this draft. But that's my personal opinion.
I like Pickens and Burks. I like Pickens and Burks both ahead of Drake London.
But
Drake London gives me, and we've discussed this on our text thread. He gives me these Mike Williams vibes, like, and this is not Mike Williams for the Chargers for anybody listening. This is Mike Williams way back in USC.
The other Mike Williams.
The other Mike Williams. Yes, this is Mike Williams from USC, who also tried to leave school the same time early as Maurice Claret. That dude was just dominant as all get out at USC. I'm talking about Mike Williams. But when he got to the league, it just was, he was okay, but I don't think he was in the league for much longer than 4 years, I want to say.
Yeah, but even Mike Williams was, his production at USC was, astronomical. Yeah.
I don't think I'd ever seen a receiver like that big and physical. He was just bossing left and right. But he got to the NFL, and everybody's big, and everybody's fast, and everybody's physical.
Right.
So, but I'm not a Drake London guy. At 44, if we got the shot, like, if my man Treylon Burks is there, you snatch him up. Don't look back. I've been saying it forever.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I like Pickens too, but there's a good chance neither one of those guys could be there. There's a
very good chance.
so
I want to let Josh get back to what he was saying, because we kind of hijacked his what he was saying. Sorry,
Yeah,
go ahead, Josh.
go ahead, Josh,
No,
and then we'll get everybody's pick at 44 once you're done.
Joey, actually, you helped enhance my point by listing the receivers, because what I was trying to say is, like, you have those top 5 wide receivers, and then, like you said, you have that second tier that I feel like there's a pretty large gap between, like, those top 5 and that second tier group. So, like, at least from my perspective, it feels like there's a pretty big drop off to where the receiver you get in the first round isn't going to be the same caliber receiver you get in the second round, if that makes sense.
It does, but honestly, I think that if you go and you look at a lot of these receivers that are in this quote unquote second tier, there's what they did at their schools, their stats, at the numbers they put up, they're really not second tier receivers. They're just as they're up there with the top tier receivers. They're just not getting the same press, maybe. There's a lot of people who are like, oh, I would love my team to take Dotson at with the first pick in the second round, or Sky Moore with the first pick in the second round, Pickens, or the list kind of John Michie. So if people are like, well, I want my team to take this player in the second round, why not? I'm sure there's going to be teams in the first round that are going to also be like, well, why are we going to wait in the second round to move up and grab this guy, when we could get this guy late in the first round? And
a lot to do with that too, Joey. Again, that the word value always comes up with these drafts, man. Is it worth it to us to sign, I don't know, Sky Moore or John Dotson or Pickens at these guys that with the 28th pick in the draft, knowing that they got that extra fifth year as
Well,
being one of the first 32 picks. And we all know
mhm.
what happens to a team when they resign somebody for their fifth year. We're a perfect example of what can go wrong.
Yeah, but we're also an example of what can go right.
Yeah, well, I don't. That's again, this sport has turned into a business so bad that that's the first thing when you look at their draft boards. The very first thing on the bottom, you'll see value in green or whatever. It's this guy, everything else falls under that, but everything now is a value pick. And that's where guys start to drop. It was JOK last year at 32. Was he a good value pick?
He was an amazing. He was an amazing pick.
Yeah, he
Absolutely.
was an amazing pick at
Yeah.
50, but the value wasn't there to sit there and get a guy who may or may not have a heart problem, but we're
Well,
going to give him that extra fifth year.
Yeah, but they also did their due diligence with his medical. And they knew that.
Well, we did.
Right. Yeah, right. And that's where I trust AB and I trust the Browns to make that pick. I do want to actually make two quick points. Number one, John Dotson last year, 91 receptions, 1,182 yards, 12 touchdowns. That's who people are viewing in the second tier. Sky Moore, 95 receptions, 1,292 yards, 10 touchdowns. John Mechie, 96 receptions, 1,142 yards, 8 touchdowns, and that was with Jameson Williams on the opposite side of him. These are guys that people are saying are in the second tier. These are still first tier guys. This draft class is just extremely ridiculously deep. And number two, Ruben, as if people do not know, I call Ruben Tio. I call him Uncle. He's one of my favorite people on planet Earth. Christian Harris is a third round pick. There's no way the Browns are taking him in the second round. I do like Christian Harris. My problem with him is that he's awful in pass coverage. He gave up over 1,000 yards in pass coverage last year. Unfortunately, he's the best linebacker that Alabama has coming out, but their two best linebackers are actually staying in, which was Will Anderson and Dallas Turner. Will Anderson's going to be probably a top 5 pick next year. The kid's a beast. Christian Harris, if you can get him, he's a great run stopper. But
that's what we need is to stop the run.
What threw
good
right
is it?
over his head.
Right, but what good is it to have the Davian Clowney, the best defensive tackle money can buy, Myles Garrett, and you name it, if the linebackers can't make a tackle?
I get that part, Ruben, but here's my thing with focusing on the Clowney aspect of it. Did Clowney play that well because of the system he was in, or was it because he was paired with Myles Garrett? I think it's because he was paired with Myles Garrett. So let's say we don't re-sign Jadeveon Clowney and we draft another defensive tackle or defensive end, however you want to say it. Maybe you can get maybe not that same level of production that Clowney gave you, but a similar level because again of the Myles Garrett effect.
I think Clowney played well. I mean, he obviously didn't have the sack numbers, but he had a lot of quarterback pressures.
He still had 9 sacks, I believe, didn't he?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He took pressure off of Myles Garrett.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
That's
He would have done
exactly
that.
what I'm saying.
I don't think it's a system thing, Josh, because he would have done that if him and Myles Garrett were playing in Cincinnati. So I don't think it's a systematic thing. I think or a player thing. It's just the way those two guys are. I mean, you got to think about this. You can't double cover either one of them. Then you can't double either one of these guys when they're both out on the field. So it doesn't matter if Joe Woods is the defensive coordinator or Tiger Woods. And these guys are who they are, man. I mean, they are who they are, and if would you like them back, yeah, but you can put all the pressure you want to on the outside, quarterback pressures or whatever, but the fact remains is once these tight ends over the middle and all these running backs coming out of the backfield got the ball out in space, there's nobody there to tackle these guys.
No, but that's what But that's what I'm saying. I'm saying it was more of a Myles Garrett effect rather than just system, because we've seen Clowney play well in other defensive schemes, but he didn't put up I don't think he put up these types of numbers like he did last year with us as a result of playing alongside Myles Garrett. That's what I'm saying.
No, it definitely helped, and there's no doubt about that.
Mhm.
But before we get too far into it, let's put everybody in Andrew Berry's shoes at pick 44. And who's your pick, whether it's offense, defense? And Joe Ewell, you've been pretty quiet, so we'll start with you.
If it's defense, I would definitely, I mean, if he's there, I'm definitely going Drake Jackson, like I mentioned. I mean, this kid's an absolute animal. And I think that and this is only the case if you don't go re-sign Clowney. If something happens where they go somewhere else, then I think you need to go get help in that area. Receiver though wise is where I think they should go, since all reports are showing that they do have Clowney and they're just waiting to release it. I really think that I understand Pickens is a good player. I understand Dotson is a good player. For me, I want Christian Watkins from North Dakota State. I think this kid is an unbelievable talent. In the Senior Bowl, everybody was saying that he was the hardest person to guard. And let's not forget that Sauce Gardner played in that, who didn't give up a touchdown his whole college career. So there were elite talents in that Senior Bowl, and I don't understand why players of the caliber of him don't get a look at it going in the first round, like Dotson is, like Pickens is, when they're coming from an FCS school. How Wentz went high, how Trey Lance went high from the same school, from the same program. But then you see a guy like Watson, he's not getting any looks nearly like those quarterbacks are. And I understand quarterbacks are more valued, but for how heavy this class is and how much a lot of these teams do need a wide receiver, and where the Browns are at, in my eyes, Watkins is probably, I think he's better than Dotson. I think he's better than Pickens. I like him more. I think he's going to come into the league with a chip on his shoulder, saying to prove that North Dakota State's the real deal, that we can compete, and that the work that I put in there is going to show in the NFL. We might not have played Ohio State. We might not have played, Alabama. We might not have played Clemson. But aside from that point, he's a premier talent, and I think this kid would be a great option. Now, if you can't get Pickens, then I like Pickens, but I'm sold on Christian Watkins. I love this kid.
All right, Clarence, how about you? Who's your pick at 44?
44. As I said before, I'm thinking they're going wide receiver. If he's there, they're taking Trey. I want them to take Treylon Burks. He's just, there's something about that kid that I think he can be a star in this league. I don't think he's going to be there. I'm hoping either him or Pickens is going to be there. And kind of going off of what Joe said with Watkins, the one thing I do like about him is I think his father played in the league, so yeah. he's got those genetics, and he knows what it takes. So those would kind of probably be my top three. If they go defense, I'm almost said if they go defense, part of me wants them to go ahead and trade for some more assets. But I do like Drake Jackson. But again, we're thinking that Clowney is re-signed, so at that point, it's kind of it would be almost a wasted pick. So then at that point, I guess we got to look at defensive tackles. And the name I keep seeing coming up is a lot is Logan Hall. So those are just kind of 4 or 5 guys that whether we go offense or defense that we're looking at, because I really have a feeling that the guys that I really would like them to take are not going to be around. So I'm hoping they have a contingency plan for their contingency plan, for which I'm sure they do, for what they're going to do.
All right, Double R, how you feeling at 44?
if it's is it Christian Watson or Christian Watkins?
Watkins.
Watkins.
Watkins. Okay, I was gonna say the law firm of Watson and Watson. That would have been good.
Eh,
Uh, Again, I'm a defensive guy. I like the linebacker. I really do. I really do like the linebacker Christian Harris. I like Leo Chanel, another linebacker. But Christian Harris is, it seems to me like, I mean, I like those fast linebackers. I really do. We need people that, and I'm not going to say, and I'm not going to be mad at I'm not going to be mad at what Joe said. Either about who's that defensive tackle?
Drake Jackson, that
Jackson. I wouldn't be mad at that either. And Clarence, to your point, I don't think that would be a wasted pick with a kid like Jackson that you can actually stand up to.
True.
He's not on all fours kind of a defensive end, and you can move the kid around. I'd be a fan. I would not be mad if they grab that kid too, because I don't want to say he's a tweener because he's bigger than a tweener, but he's quick enough and fast enough that you could play him at a linebacker, and in the coverage you could actually put him as well as
He
going
played-
after the quarterback.
dropped back into coverage against USC quite a lot. He
Yeah.
played it. He outside linebacker almost for him, but with his size, they're listing him as an edge rusher, and that's what he's going into the draft as.
Yeah,
Yeah, he had last year he's 6'4", he's 250 pounds,
Mhm.
but he's extremely fast. He could play edge and he could drop back into coverage. He had 5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery, and 2 interceptions last year. And he's really just scratching the surface. You put him with, and this is the type of player, this isn't my pick just as a but to just for everyone that keeps that's agreeing with Joe, and it is a great, if it was a pick, it's exactly a Joe Woods type player, a guy who can fit multiple schemes.
Yep.
Just like JOK can. He likes those guys who can, like Delpit. How many times did we see Delpit blitz last year? He likes big physical guys who can do multiple things on defense, so he can come up with some crazy schemes.
Well, we need to see Delpit blitz a little more than he did last year. I think I counted 5 blitzes from Delpit, and they all worked. So I don't see why they didn't do it. But let me one more thing here, and I just want to
go ahead.
go to the next person. If I had to pick a wide receiver, if because it's going to be hard, because you don't know what order these guys are going to fall in, and we don't know that teams can shift on the fly. Maybe 7 of these guys go in the first round. I mean, New Orleans is now, my God, I saw a story the other day where New Orleans is on Olave's back. Could you imagine Michael Thomas and Chris Olave on that team? They got to find somebody throwing the ball. But I mean, they're even in the mix for a wide receiver now. So it's going to come down, guys, to 6, maybe 7 guys in the first round of wide receiver. And that's unheard of for that position. Maybe. Again, it's hard to tell. I like Sky Moore that you mentioned, Joey. I love that kid. I also like Mechie from Alabama. He was kind of like set aside. I don't want to say set aside because of what Jamison Williams did, but he came off an injury too. He played then in that senior year after his injury, and now hopefully he's back healthy again. I'd see Mechie dropping down to the 3rd round, maybe here. That would be an absolute value steal if that happened and the Browns are in position. That's why I think that they can wait a little bit for a wide receiver, because they can reach down as far down as the 3rd round and get a wide receiver with the talent that's here this year.
All right, Josh, who's your pick at 44?
I think I've made this perfectly clear, but I'm going Jahan Dodson, the wide receiver from Penn State.
The next Jerry Rice.
But if he's not available, I like Pickens from Georgia. I think he would be a very good wide receiver. I agree with Watkins, the wide receiver from North Dakota State. And what I really like about Watkins actually is he would have that chip on the shoulder of like, I'm here to prove that just because I went to an FCS school doesn't mean I can't play. Like, he wants to help prove that North Dakota State is a legit football power.
And they are.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
All right, Schneider, who you got?
Just call me by a last name.
Well, there's two Joeys, so
Yeah, there's two Joes.
Well, there's Joe, and then there's Joey. Jesus,
Joe and
one's got a
Joey.
Y at the end.
all right, Schneider, come on.
So I think this is what's going to happen. Is I think near the end of the first round, maybe from like 22 on, you're going to see a run, and it's either going to be on receivers or it's going to be on defensive linemen, and whichever one gets with someone, it's going to start a panic, and whichever one starts going first, that's where you're going to see some people fall. I can't see Treylon Burks being there, Clarence. I don't want to burst your bubble.
Trust me, I don't see it either.
If he is, I mean, it's obviously a no-brainer. But offensive wise, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go with Josh here. I'm gonna say Jahan Dotson. He had 91 receptions, 1,182 yards, and 12 touchdowns for Penn State. He runs a 4.43 40. He's very good at all three levels when he's running routes, and he only dropped 2 passes. He 91 receptions. He only dropped 2 passes. That's pretty crazy. And on top of that, he played in a very tough Big Ten. So, you know, I mean, you could say the same thing for John Mechie as well, but he's got his injury problem. So, you know, as Pickens would be tough to pass up. I'm not sold on Christian Watkins. That's just, I know he's big. I know he's tall. He's fast, but you look at his production, and for someone that's big, that tall, that fast, I just don't see the production he should have had at an FCS school. I mean, if he had 1,200 yards receiving, okay, I maybe. And it's not saying that he's not going to be good, because he could. I mean, he absolutely could be. I mean, he could be the next Randy Moss. We don't know. I personally,
Jahan Dotson's got that covered.
don't see it. Jahan Dotson's 5'11". He's not 6'4". But Jahan Dotson is just all around amazing receiver, and that's probably who I would take. You know, my player comparison for him is actually Tyler Lockett. So that's kind of where I kind of see him going. My comparison for John Mechie is actually Jarvis Landry.
Exactly, and that's how I view Dotson as well.
And then my comparison for Burks, if he falls in the second round, you know, AB could go get him. You know, my comparison for him is Allen Robinson, which, you know, if Josh was talking about big physical receiver, you know, he's Burks is 6'3", 225. Only knock on him is they say, you know, he only ran a 4.55 at the combine, but you watch tape on him and he's got a lightning quick first step. I mean, he flies out. As far as defense, you know, I mean, there's just let me just and Kevin knows this. I put together like 90 scouting reports. Like I'm a draft guy, so I'm not trying to take too much time, but it's hard when I put all this stuff together. I love Drake Jackson. I think he will probably will be there at our pick, and that's just a guy that fits Joe Wood's scheme so well that, you know, he could do a little bit of everything. But I also want to throw Logan Hall in there because he's 6'6", 260 pounds. He could play defensive end. He could play defensive tackle. He had 6 sacks, 13 tackles for a loss last year. Big guy, he can knock down passes. He's another guy that, you know, move inside or outside, kind of fits Joe Wood's scheme. But I actually have a question for a lot of you guys. And because I am going to agree and say Drake Jackson, if I could take defense with that pick. But here's a question for everyone real quick. David Ajabo. Do we all know who he is from Michigan?
I was just about to mention him too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me throw this at you. He tore his Achilles on his pro day. He was going to be at the very least a top 15 pick, maybe a top 10 pick. A lot of people said that Aiden Hutchinson, you know, Josh, to what you said earlier between Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney, did one benefit from the other? And David Ajabo, people don't know if Ajabo benefited from Hutchinson or Hutchinson benefited from Ajabo. He's 6'5", he's 250 pounds. He had 11 sacks last year, 12 tackles for a loss, 3 passes defended, 1 fumble recovered, and 5 forced fumbles. He tore his Achilles. He's not going to play this year. If he falls to pick 44, would you take Ajabo, a top 15 player, maybe a top 10 player, defensive end, and stash him for the year, let him recover, because you're essentially getting a first round player in the second round? For me, if he is there, I would take him.
No, I at this point, like, I feel like we've heard it said so many times over the last year about basically a lot of this was concerning the former QB about we can't waste guys' years. We can't waste guys' years. Well, the Browns are built to win now, and I like Ojabo. I do. I think he's a great player, but I feel like at 44, since you don't have a first round pick, this is your first pick of the draft. Whoever you get needs to be able to come in and contribute immediately, I guess. You can't have anybody that's sitting there. If he falls to the third, which I don't know if that would happen if he falls there.
He's not falling to the third.
That's what I'm saying. But I feel like for this team right now, as is, whoever you take needs to be able to come in and play this year. There's the holes that the Browns have. They're not immense, but they need to be filled, and they need to be filled this year because, what if we get Clowney for a 1-year deal or something like that?
Then you got Ajabo the following year, who's going to
waiting. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like it in a year, well, not just this year, but this year and the next 2 years, we don't have first round picks. So I feel like the guys that we're going to get need to come in and be able to play right then and there.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree too. I'd take him at 78 if he dropped. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree too. If I know if by some miracle he fell to the third round with us having 2 picks, I would take him. But we need that impact player at number 44 is going to come in and contribute, whether it's defensive end or wide receiver or whatever it may be.
So I actually have a quick question for you, Joey. Since you agreed with me about Jahan Dotson, do you think that it would be worth it for the Browns, for Barry to possibly trade up, maybe not into the first round, but into the higher end of the second round to draft Jahan Dotson? Or do you think there's more of a likelihood that he would fall into that 44 position?
Like I said, I kind of feel like there's going to be a run, and whether it's going to be on receivers or defensive linemen, I don't know. We'll see. But I don't know if I would trade up for him, and that's only because there's a lot of players that can fill needs the Browns have. If you see a trade up to go and get Dotson, I think that at that point you can probably absolutely guarantee yourself that we have Clowney signed. If we are trading up, if we trade up and we draft a receiver, it's because Clowney's already signed, and that would be the only reason I could possibly see that happening. But I mean, Dotson can go. I could see. I mean, in all honesty, I could see Dotson and Sky Moore going ahead of Trey Burks, and it's not because I think they're. I don't know if I would say that they're necessarily better players, but I think once you start getting into that, those maybe 4 through 8 receivers, a lot of teams are going to view who they like. Mm-hmm. They're going to take who they like, and not necessarily who we personally think is better, but maybe who they think fits their team better or who they personally like better. So, but no, I wouldn't trade up for Dotson, just because I think that there's enough good players that we'll find who we're looking for at 44. And that's if we even pick at 44. Maybe there's a trade down. Maybe there's another trade somewhere else. Who knows? All
right, so we went over our number 44 pick. So looking at the third, we have 2 third rounds and a 4th round. Maybe some guys that you like, because with the depth in this draft, you can get guys with those picks who can come in and play right away. There's some depth we need. We've mentioned receiver, defensive end, linebacker. You've got JOK, Jacob Phillips, a couple of younger guys there. Anthony Walker's on a 1-year deal, so you could probably use some more depth there, as Ruben said. Cornerback, I think, is kind of being overlooked. I know we have Newsom and Ward. Greedy Williams is on the last year of his deal, and he's been a huge disappointment. Can't stay healthy. The one guy that we lost in free agency, who I think is a big loss, who really made a big impact in the second half of the season, especially, was MJ Stewart.
Mhm.
And I don't know if Greedy
He was a
can
safety.
be
He was a safety though.
Yeah, well, he played corner
played
and he
everywhere.
played nickel. Yeah, he played everywhere.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not sure if I'm ready to trust Greedy Williams in that position. I know you've got AJ Green, an undrafted guy who we gave a pretty big undrafted deal a couple years ago, who showed some flashes last year. But I think they do need to pick another corner, maybe in the third or 4th round. So what are your guys? What guys do you have that you'd like maybe in the 3rd or 4th round? You think you can come in and help? And we'll start with Joe Ewell.
Yeah, going with what you said, Kev. I mean, at least for like my first 3rd round pick, 78 overall, I really like Kobe Bryant out of Cincinnati. I think he's the perfect height and weight and speed for us, like a nickel corner. And what they would be looking for, I agree with you 100% that I also just don't trust Greedy in that role, and getting another young guy in your DB's room would just be more beneficial. I mean, he's an Ohio boy. He went to Glenville High School as well. So, he's going to love playing for the Browns. He's going to have that special kind of, relationship that most players who get drafted don't have that type of honor with, like Denzel. So I really like that there. I mean, if we do go defense in the 1st round, in the 2nd round, I would really love to see us go with Mechie out of Bama. I think he'll fall to the 3rd round if we're going to look at and then I don't like David Bell. I know, Ruben, I know you said that, but I personally don't like him. Obviously, with him playing in the Big Ten, I saw him play against Ohio State numerous times, then just watching college football all the time. I don't like him personally, but another guy I really do like that I mentioned a little bit about earlier without his name is Justin Ross out of Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
He had a bad
That's
year, but and his numbers weren't as great. But you also look at the comparison ever DJ, and I think there's a big drop off there. I think DJ's overhyped at Clemson. And I think that if you put Justin Ross, with how big of a body that he is, into the Browns offense, I really like that there. Now, if you go wide receiver with that 2nd round pick, you're still looking to go offense, I would love to see Jeremy Ruckert. He really reminds me of Mark Andrews, that very underrated tight end who can block, receive as well. And in the linebacker room, my kind of sleeper pick in the 3rd round is Nick Bonito from Oklahoma. He's kind of like a hybrid linebacker. He can play outside linebacker, but he can also, his home is middle linebacker, and he's a very good run stopper. And he really helped Oklahoma in the Big 12. And I was hesitant about it because the Big 12 isn't really for any defensive play at all. Their scores are like 60 to 50 every single week for whoever's playing. But I think this kid is a true diamond in the rough. So that's who I have for who they should go for in the 3rd round.
Okay.
Real quick, Kev, just I just want to.
Well, you can go ahead and you can go up next if you want.
Yeah, I just want to go off that because Joe, you pretty much nailed it for me.
Yeah.
I love Kobe Bryant. I think that he's maybe one of the most. I think that he is a 1st round talent that's going to end up falling into the 3rd round because Sauce Gardner is obviously a ridiculously good cornerback, but people don't realize how good Kobe Bryant was. He's 6'1", he's 200 pounds, he's ridiculously fast. He had 2 forced fumbles, he had 3 interceptions. People just didn't throw his way, and when they did, he was, you know, he was defending passes. He was picking them off. I mean, the kid, I think, is that people just don't realize how good that Cincinnati was. And you know, and I think that Kobe Bryant is a very underrated cornerback. That's going to fall into the third round. I do not think
They can't have number 24 because Chubb's got it.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't think. Mechie's falling into the third round. He will be in the second round. But if you're going to go, I like Jimmy Rucker. I don't see him as the Mark Andrews. The guy who I see as the Mark Andrews type player is Trey McBride from Colorado State. 6'4", 260, had 90 receptions for 1,121 yards last season. In his last season with Colorado State, he is, you know, he'd be 6'4", but he's 260. He's stocky. He can block. He definitely can receive with 90 receptions. I also like Jelani Woods from Virginia. Big.
Underrated tight end in this year's class.
Woods.
Yeah, he's so
yeah.
athletic. He has such a high ceiling, and if you can teach him like proper form on blocking and things like that, like he reminds me of, in a way, like of a Kyle Pitts coming out, just not as talented in that way. Like obviously Kyle Pitts was a premier talent coming out of college, but like that athleticism aspect of his game is unreal. And if you can teach him how to block, because you know, like you can't teach size, you can't teach athleticism, you can teach somebody how to block, you can teach somebody to get stronger, you know. So I think he has the highest ceiling though with that.
Well, he was a former quarterback who turned to tight end. He's 6'7", 253. I mean, but he could play for the Cavs too, honestly. But I mean, you know, even he's fairly raw at tight end, but he, like, you know, like Joe said, he could be taught, especially when you put him in an NFL room. I mean, he got taught very well at Virginia, but you put him in an NFL room, I mean, he still had 44 receptions, you know, just shy of 600 yards and 8 touchdowns at Virginia last year. So, I mean, Joe, I mean, I'm right there with you. I think you could go linebacker. I think we could probably get Christian Harris in maybe the 4th or 5th round.
There you go, Ruben.
There you go, Ruben. That was for you.
I don't care if they get him in the 7th round, just get him. I don't care.
But no, I like Kobe Bryant out of I just feel weird saying his name, if I'm being honest, but I like him a lot. And I think you could go linebacker, tight end. So I'm right there with you with the 2 third-round picks.
Yep.
Clarence, how about you? You got any guys you're looking at in the 3rd or 4th round?
Joe hit on one of the guys, Justin Ross. Guy was an absolute beast as a freshman at Clemson. He had was it a back injury?
Yeah,
I believe it was.
He had injury, and then he had a foot injury, like right when he came back season as well.
Yeah. So, and then, you know, I agree with him 100%. The drop off from, you know, him getting the ball from Lawrence, getting it from DJ, that's clearly going to affect your numbers. He's a guy that I absolutely love. And then on the defensive side of the ball, the kid from Ohio State, now this is probably more towards the 4th round, but there's something about the Haskell Garrett kid.
Yeah.
Defensive tackle. I like, if you can get shot in the face while breaking up a fight and come back, you're my man. Obviously got toughness. So those are the 2 guys that I wouldn't mind seeing them look at, you know, in that 3rd or 4th round. The worst part about this draft is that sitting at 44, like we're literally at the mercy of whatever happens in front of us. So, you know, previous years we're picking, you know, top 5, top 10, top 13. We can kind of gauge, you know, what's going to happen in front of us. There might be a few missteps here and there, but, you know, if we were still sitting at 13, we could probably list 15 to 20 players who might go in that top 13 or that top 12 before we take a pick. Whereas in this, it's just kind of, you know, at 44, every guy we're talking about right now, at 44 could be gone at 44. So I'm thinking the guys that we're looking at talking about now in the third or fourth round, there's a good chance these guys will be there. But yeah, it's those two guys for me for sure. If we have a chance to pick them up third or fourth round.
All right, double R. How about you? Anybody besides Christian Harris?
Christian Harris he'll be a Brown before they even start picking these guys.
Christian Harris and his mother.
When we're looking at the tight end position, we got rid of Hooper, and I keep thinking, one thing that needs to be said here is, are they going to stick with the same system now that they have Watson
I'm wondering that same thing.
than they had when they didn't have Watson?
No, they're going to change it to fit him for sure.
Yeah,
They're
they
going to
have
change the
to.
system to fit Watson. So is that 13 personnel going to be as relevant and prevalent as it has been?
Hope not.
And that being said, if you're going to do that, you need another tight end. I like the kid Dulcich from Greg Dulcich from UCLA. Take a look at the film. Watch a little bit of film on this guy. Now he runs like his feet hurt constantly. But for some reason, he breaks away from people. I don't know his numbers. I think he was fantastic. I think like 16, maybe 17 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken, at the tight end position, UCLA.
I got your stats right here, Ruben. I got you covered, Tio. He is 6'3", 245 pounds. He had 42 receptions for 725 yards and 5 touchdowns.
I mean, the kid he's one of these guys where, a third round, fourth round pick, you take a chance on somebody like this. Again, it's hard for us to gauge anything that's going on here because we just don't know what this offense is going to look like. We know what it's going to look like as far as the players and talent wise, but the adjustments that are going to be made, we have no idea. My surprise of this whole draft night, I don't know if it'll happen tomorrow night, Friday or Saturday, but I got a funny feeling the Browns are going to pull something off here, and it's not going to be with Mayfield. I think somehow Dearness Johnson will get moved. Maybe with 44 to move up, because it looks to me like after the 24th pick in the draft, there's one team for sure that I know that's going to go after a wide receiver, and that's Kansas City because they lost Hill. Maybe Green Bay if they don't grab somebody else in free agency, if they don't get a Debo in a trade. But the running back position is something that most teams are in the bottom of the draft, and it's been historically go after. And so you start getting some running backs come off the board from 2024 on down. I like this kid, Jerome Ford from Cincinnati. I don't know why this kid, I'm enamored by him so much. Every time I see him play, I haven't seen one guy tackle him yet. Either they push him out of bounds or whatever, but he's always 20, 25 yards downfield. The kid can catch the ball out of the backfield with his eyes closed. You guys seen Cincinnati play. It wasn't all the quarterback. I mean, this kid was like, he would run past, he ran over the middle to catch passes in no man's land where some receivers dare to go. I mean, this kid's just got some spunk to him, and maybe they'll get him without having to get rid of Dearness Johnson, because there's nothing wrong with getting some, having people pushing people. But there's something about this Jerome Ford kid, man, that I just, if you can drop to 118, it would be fantastic. Again, another value pick. I don't know. There's just something that enamors me about that kid, man. I not a lot of people talking about him. Kobe Bryant, of course, that goes without saying. That would be imagine this, you have a backup shutdown corner, which is unheard of. Just nobody, you don't throw to this kid in college, but he's going to be your second stringer or third cornerback on your football team, and he's a shutdown corner. That you can't get too many of those. You just can't go wrong with a pick like that. The kid from Ohio State that I would probably take, because I'd probably drop, is Nicholas Petit-Frere. He's a tackle. We all know depth on his football team last year and on the offensive line kicked our holy you-know-what. We had to keep running James Hudson. I think that he played every position but center. You need to get a little bit more depth on that offensive line, 4th, 5th round. Start getting some big guys up there. And Petit Frere was a starter at Ohio State. He may drop that far. He's the kid's got quick feet. He's big, and he would be somebody that I'd take a look at, and just in case, because Conklin's coming back from that knee injury. We just don't know to what extent he's going to be back or how quickly he's going to be able to recover from that. But yeah, like you said, Clarence, man, when you get this far in the draft, there's going to be people out there, names out there that nobody's ever heard of before. They're not on ESPN, they're not on Fox Sports, and then to Joe's question, or what Joe said not too long ago, you don't know what kind of player you're getting because we don't see them enough. And that could be, as Joey said, somebody's 3rd tier guy who is better than the 2nd tier guy, because we just don't know who he is. We don't see enough of him. The kid got the same last name as me, Mr. Rodriguez. Played, he's a linebacker. What the hell's his name? Nicholas Rodriguez. Take a look at him. He was at Army. I was in the Navy, but I watched Army Navy, and this kid was all over the field. Again, another player that has nobody sees of, nobody, who watches Army play, and other than people that went to the Army. You look at these types of players that are just, this is the beauty of the draft. These are kids that are going to get their dreams accomplished, and you just take a chance on guys like this. You never know. Diamond in the Brady was what? Brady was 199, and look what he turned out to be.
Right.
Malcolm Rodriguez is his name.
All right. How about you, Josh? Anybody you're looking at in the 3rd or 4th round?
So I'm looking on what they say on sportsillustrated.com. They have Nick Cross, the safety from Maryland, going at 78. But the guy that actually catches my eye, yes, they have him listed at pick number 202, so this would probably be a bit of a stretch. But James Mitchell, the tight end from Virginia Tech, I saw a little bit of Virginia Tech this season. I liked what he did in terms of his route running and how he played offensively. So, and like a couple of you said, we lost Austin Hooper. We have Harrison Bryant. We franchise tagged David Njoku, which I personally think was the wrong decision, but that's neither here nor there. But it's always good to have more than one pass catching tight end. And so I think Mitchell would be a nice fit.
Okay. Yeah, I do think they'll
Evan.
take another tight end. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
Looking at a little bit of the later 4th round and early 5th round, though, maybe even to the 6th round, though, there's one guy, and I had the chance to, for the mic drop, I had the chance to talk to his agent and everything, and I've been in love with this guy ever since. And Trevor Denbo from SMU, though, is an absolute freak, and he reminds me, and Ruben, I know you're going to be big on this, but he reminds me of JOK. And he had his last season there, he had 40 total tackles and 2 interceptions, and he scored a touchdown on one of his interceptions, and he's being viewed as a hybrid. And his combine, he wasn't at the combine, but his numbers at his pro day were absolutely unreal. And he would have actually, if he would have been at the combine, his 40 for all of the linebackers would have placed 4th. And his vertical jump and broad jump would have been in the top 2 for each category.
What's his name again, Joe? Say his name again.
Trevor Denbo.
SMU.
Yes, SMU. So, he's an absolute freak of a talent. And it's it really does, after watching film on him more and more, it really has reminded me of a JOK, a guy who can drop back into coverage a lot, but a guy who also can come up and help in the run game, and play a part in that. So I think that if he's there on day 3, that you go for him with, no question about it, in my opinion. I think that this guy is an absolute score for the Browns, and they could use a hybrid like that again. And like we said, that fits Woods' background. He wants guys, like you said, Joe, he wants guys who can play in different types of schemes and who can play in different types of defenses and things like that. So I think that would fit. I think that would mold perfectly with what they want. And I was just able to get it. His 40 was a 4.46. His broad jump was 11. He ran a 7.03 L drill. He ran a 4.09 shuttle. He had 18 on bench press and a 38.5-inch vertical jump. So he's an absolute freak of an athlete.
And there's living proof of a kid that doesn't get the exposure he deserves. Those are the types of players that Barry thrives, and our scouting department thrives. And they've probably seen this kid. It's just nobody else knows about him. You said Denbo. How many of us here heard of this kid?
Oh, I'm sure they're well aware of him.
Yep.
I think one other position I think we may need to draft in the later rounds is a kicker.
I was good bring that up.
Cade York, baby. Cade
The
York.
kid from LSU.
That's the kid that's everybody's pick.
We need some competition for sure.
I'd take him in the 5th. I thought wait, we don't have a 5th this year, do we?
No, but I've seen a
No.
lot of
No.
I've seen a lot of mock drafts that have people trading up with the Eagles specifically for some reason, probably because the Eagles have a million picks in this year's draft because of that Wentz trade. But trading up with the Eagles in the 5th round for I think it was 119th overall or
I've seen
something
it.
like that.
I've seen him in the 4th round. Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, trading up with the Eagles for that 5th round pick for the guy from LSU, specifically the kicker.
What is the ideal round to draft a kicker, man?
I mean, after shooter, I guess you got to go.
Don't ask Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't they trade up into like the 3rd round or something to take a kicker?
Who did? We did?
If you
No,
but
Tampa Bay.
Oh my God.
Hell, the Raiders, Janikowski at the end of the 1st round.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, but I mean,
Janikowski
keep the kid we got.
kind of worth it.
We got a kid. We got a kid that was 15 out of 16 in extra points, and he was 16 out of 21 on field goals this year. The extra point that he missed is the only one people are talking about. I mean, give the kid for Cincinnati was, I don't want to say he was garbage, but he wasn't exactly Justin Tucker until the playoffs. And he made big kicks at the right time. Give the kid a chance, let him kick. He wasn't the worst kicker we've had. Zane Gonzalez was no Zane Gonzalez, believe me.
Cody Parkey.
Or Cody
I'm still
Parkey.
wondering what the
Cody
heck?
Clank.
Cody, I got a quick question for everybody. I know we're coming up on time here.
Yeah.
Does anybody think the Browns might be scheming on something? Because they didn't, from everything that I've heard,
Yes.
they told everybody, they didn't tell any of the reporters or anybody to show up to Berea tomorrow. They said they weren't even opening the building or something like that to reporters. That kind of leads me to think that they're scheming on something.
They're up to something, of course.
There's something going on. For
I think
sure.
that was
And they don't want
There's one
any
thing
kind
we
of-
got to understand too, guys.
Like,
Clarence,
that's
there's one thing everybody has to understand here. This NFL is not going to do our organization any favors.
oh, hell no.
They're not going to stoop down. They're not going to try and if there's any scheming, any help. No, the Browns organization. I don't want to start talking about collusion here because that's hard to prove. This is a good old boy network. Don't do any business with the Cleveland Browns, man. The Browns went ahead and set this league as far as contractual contracts go. They set this league into a different level. There's not one team out there right now that's going to help the Cleveland Browns do anything.
Nope. And screw them too.
Anything. If you guys back yourself into this corner, dig yourself out. You know, you back yourself, you got yourself into a situation now where you got to pay this kid. You know who I'm talking about. You pay him. You're paying Watson, you can pay him too. You can afford it. We're not helping you do anything.
How's Baltimore feeling right now about Lamar Jackson?
Oh my God.
How do you think
Lamar Jackson, I think Lamar's got 2 more years on his deal.
What do
I
you
believe-
think
I
the
believe so.
Cincinnati Bengals are going to do when Burrow's contract is up? And this kid's been to the Super Bowl.
I don't know, but I can tell you that Baltimore just better enjoy the last 2 years of Lamar Jackson before he
And
goes
Cincinnati
somewhere
the
else.
same. Cincinnati the same with Burrow.
I don't think Burrow ever leaves Cincinnati.
Nah, Burrow's never leaving Cincinnati. Bengals
He
are
grew
gonna
up a
walk
Bengals
the
fan.
ball
You think the Bengals are going to cough up $60 million a year for this kid?
Yeah.
Yep.
He's not he would be Burrow in my eyes with everything that I've heard. And I was lucky enough to play for a semester with somebody who played for Burrow in high school, caught passes from Burrow in high school. Everything that I've heard, he's an amazing guy. And he would remind me of the mentality of like a Tim Duncan with the NBA, how Tim would take pay cuts all the time so they could retain better talent. I could definitely see Joe Burrow being that guy for just the love that he has of the game and the love that he has for the city of Cincinnati.
So he's the anti Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Right.
I
Right.
remember Beckham saying that when he first got here too.
By the time his contract's up, the salary cap may be 400 million. So
That's
Real
the
quick,
thing.
real quick.
Within the next 2 years, because I think they're getting they get the salary cap improved next year, and then the year after that, or if it's next year, they start getting all this gambling money. But in the next 2 or 3 years, you're talking about a $325 to $350 million salary cap. But
Yeah,
that doesn't mean the owners want to spend it.
it's going to keep blowing up.
Oh yeah, it's gonna keep going up. But Ruben, I think Burrow's gonna be a Bengal for life. I don't think he's going anywhere.
I'll bet you a Jahan Dotson jersey that the Bengals don't re-sign him because the contract's going to be too big.
Nope, I'm not making that bet. No thanks.
I honestly, if Joe Burrow plays the way that Joe Burrow played this season, I think that the Bengals would pay him whatever he's probably asking.
The Brown
I
family is
agree.
notoriously cheap, so
Yep, they sure
uh,
are.
That's true. Real
They
quick,
sure
I,
are.
I don't know if we want this to be the last topic. I'm not the moderator here, Kevin is, but I do want to just real quick get anyone's thoughts. Does Baker get traded during the draft?
I was just gonna wrap it up with that. Does he get traded Saturday or Sunday, and where's he going?
I
so
haven't.
this is a Den of Dogs podcast. We don't speak that name on here. Sorry, we don't.
I'm taking over.
I mean, Clarence, when I was on, that's all we talked about.
and we didn't talk about it after that for a while.
I think he will get moved either Saturday or Sunday, probably Sunday. I think there's a lot of smoke going on right now about teams not wanting him. I think somebody's gonna pay. I mean, the Browns are gonna have to pay probably half of his salary. But
I think he gets moved tomorrow.
Yeah,
You think?
yep.
What do you think, Joe?
Ooh.
I'm hoping he does.
I think
I'm saying
I have-
Seattle.
I got a hunch that the Browns trade up in the first round for a big time target.
Okay.
I think they love Chris Olave because they've had so many interviews with him. Every press release, every article that I've read, they've absolutely loved this kid. And Chris Olave has also came out on social media saying how much he wants to play in Cleveland again, that he loves the state of Ohio and that he wants to be here and he wants to make a difference. I could really see Seattle, like Kevin said, but I could also see quite possibly taking either the Steelers pick or the Saints pick and giving up like Baker, how you said, Ruben, giving up Dearness Johnson, not to the Steelers, if that, and also possibly giving up Greedy Williams because some people might still have some high hope on him, and then giving up our second round pick as well. I mean, you're going to have to give up that second round pick no matter what. I'm not saying both those guys, but.
So you think that the Browns would trade Baker and a second and potentially something else to the Steelers?
Yeah, I mean, because here's the thing: is that at the end of the day, if the Browns
guys don't want that,
if the
man.
Browns don't move him, he's going to go somewhere else. And we've already seen reports that have circulated that the Steelers are going to pick him up like that in a snap of a finger. So why not go get something for him while you still have something to offer? And while a guy like Olave could possibly fall 220 and be on the table for you, or, get Clarence a little hot there in his seat and maybe take Burks at 20.
Seeing Baker go to Pittsburgh is quite honestly would be my worst nightmare.
Everybody's worst nightmare.
I'd rather see him go out west of Seattle. I'd rather see him go down south so he can go down there and unseat Darnold. I don't want to see him go to Pittsburgh. I'm not one of those people who say that Baker sucks. I don't know if he sucks. I don't know if he's good, but all I know is that I don't know what the hell he is. So
I don't know if he's good or if he sucks either, but I know that we have Myles Garrett, so that's good enough for me.
but I'll take Miles all day. I love Miles too, but I don't want this to become one of those things that we look back on in 10 years and be like, you know what, we let this guy go and he went somewhere in the division and came in here and kicked our ass a couple times a year. Like, I'd rather get him as far away out of this division as possible. So that way, if he is good, he can be good somewhere that we don't have to see him that often. We only have to see him once every 4 years.
I'm going to give you guys something crazy, and I know you're going to laugh at me. And I brought this out there on the chat. I think the Browns should take their Baker Mayfield, the number 44 pick, and maybe throw in Dearness Johnson, go up to number 6 with the Panthers, who are looking for a quarterback. The Panthers know damn well there isn't one quarterback in this draft that can hold Baker Mayfield's jock.
Any picket.
There's nobody in this
Yeah,
draft, and I don't care who you throw out there, Ritter, whoever the hell it is, that can come in and play for the Carolina Panthers, like Baker Mayfield can come in and play for the Carolina Panthers. There's nobody in this draft that can do that. Everybody else, every quarterback in this draft is called a prospect. Prospects are people who haven't done anything yet. The Carolina Panthers know this. They're not going to draft anybody. They're not going to draft Malik Willis for what? To sit 2 years? For what? Desmond Ritter. None of those guys are going to be that can come right into their team and start for them right away. And to your point, Joe, you could trade them to the Steelers. The problem is the Steelers won't make that deal because of the money that's involved. So the Browns may have to pay $10 million, as Kevin said. You trade Baker to Carolina, which is number 44 pick, and you tell the Carolina Panthers you're picking up the $18 million.
No way, Ruben.
The Browns,
There's
the
no
Browns
way.
don't take a cap hit.
It's a nice dream.
They're paying the player.
Mm-hmm.
The Carolina Panthers don't get a cap hit because they don't have to pay the player.
I think that I
It's a
would
win-win
love that. Ruben.
situation for everybody.
I would
That
love
is
that, but I
total
think you got to
wishful
throw in the
thinking,
greedy.
Ruben.
I don't
Yeah,
care if you're
I-
going greedy.
I'm
agree
gonna,
with Joe.
Throw in anybody else you want to. Who else do you want? You just made a blockbuster trade for Watson. Make one that's going to benefit you even more.
because
I agree.
if you're trading up to try to get the number 6 pick, Ruben, I'm gonna tell you right now. Number one, if you're giving him Baker, you're gonna probably still have to pay some of his contract. I would
All
say,
of it.
Yeah,
I don't
he
care
was
about
right.
some of it. I'll pay it all.
and then you're gonna be, but you're giving up your second rounder.
So?
You're probably giving up a third rounder, and you're
It-
probably
Is it worth?
Oh
18
yeah.
Is it
For
worth
the number
18
6 pick in the draft?
Is it worth, Joey? Is it worth $18 million for this franchise? Do you think it's worth $18 million for this franchise to get Chris Olave or Garrett Wilson on this football team?
I don't think that you need to trade up to number 6 to do it.
No.
I think
Yeah,
you
but who
do.
else is going to take
I
him?
think you do. If you want,
I think if
want-
you're at number, if you have the 6th pick in the draft, you're probably going to take. I mean, there's probably going to be someone there that might,
who?
I mean, if I have the 6th pick in the draft and he falls, I'm taking Sauce Gardner.
exactly. Thank you. Or
I don't care. I don't
So-
care who's there, and I'm bumping Newsome to the slot.
But I don't need
and playing
Sauce
nickel.
Gardner. I need a wide receiver.
I
Are you
know, but
kidding
you're
me?
talking.
I don't need
you're
Deshaun
talking-
Watson. I don't need Deshaun Watson throwing passes to Sauce Gardner.
But when you're at the number 6 pick, you're taking you're looking at generational talent, like Kyle
Chris
Hamilton.
Olave is not going to be a generational talent.
He might be, but you can also
might.
you can also possibly get him in the late teens, the early 20s.
And that's no
Right.
guarantee. Now with New Orleans sniffing around, they already got pictures out. with
No,
him
but
and
I mean,
Thomas.
but then you also are looking at, I don't know if Joe agrees with me, but Kyle Hamilton from Notre Dame. I mean,
you got the New York Jets with 2 first-round picks. The Philadelphia
Okay,
Eagles
so
with 2.
if
picks.
you got the number 6 pick,
The Giants.
it opens up so much.
all
that's-
these teams are looking for.
I
wide
would be happy to trade Baker Mayfield for Baker. I would give someone Baker Mayfield and in our 4th round pick for as long as they pay his contract and we get a bag of Fritos.
What's wrong with you paying? What's wrong with you paying his contract? Because you'll guarantee you'll get rid of him.
the Browns aren't going to do that, Ruben.
Because
There's
the
no
whole
way
point
the
is
Browns would do that.
If they
we
don't
want
let
to.
him- if they don't pay him, if they don't,
Dude, Listen,
listen, here's the thing, if they release him.
the only way they get rid of Baker Mayfield is to pay his whole contract because nobody's
All right,
gonna do business.
who brought up Baker Mayfield? They're fired.
See?
Ruben, here's the thing, dude.
My
That was
phone's about
me.
to start acting up here in a second.
All right, Clarence, I have a question then.
Yeah.
One question for you.
Yeah.
You and Ruben then. If since you're so big on receiver and Ruben's so big on defense in the second round, if we do trade up to 6, obviously Ruben said already that he wants, a wide receiver because that's the reason why you're doing that. But a guy like Thibodeau falls,
Yep.
what
Take it.
happens?
I like the
I
kid.
mean, you talk about generational type talent. I don't think it gets much. I think, in my opinion, he's better than Hutchinson, but I just don't think they're going to take him.
I agree with you on that 100%. I look at it like this.
I
If
would
there's
too,
some
but
way
let's
for them
get-
to get to 6,
That's fine. Let's get to number 6.
if there's some way for them to get to
We
6,
can have that
I feel like-
conversation.
I feel like Baker would be the key because Rule is out there. He's out there fighting for his job. Like Ruben said, you know what? No quarterback at 6 that they draft is going to save his job unless they come in and they're world beaters. But there's a good chance they're all going to sit behind Darnold, and we know what Darnold is.
I wouldn't count
So-
out the Falcons either.
True. But Joe, honestly, like if they can move up to 6,
And think about this too.
I think the Ohio State kids are great, but I would be all right just moving back to 13 somehow and just taking my man Burks and getting the hell out of Dodge.
But think about this too, guys. After the number 6 pick, the Carolina Panthers don't pick again till Saturday.
Does he have 135 or something like that? I think.
Yeah, they don't
don't
have a
pick
third.
again
They don't
until
have a second,
Saturday.
third, or fourth. They don't have one until 4th round.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pay this man's contract, and I don't give a shit how many draft picks you got. Give him the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round pick, but get up there
What?
and pay this
Okay.
kid's money. You got to pay him anyways. Baker shows up to OTAs
You gotta
and
pay
he
him.
shows up to training camp like he's supposed to. Why? Because he's got 18 million reasons to do so.
Yeah, he's gonna show up. All these
He's got
rumors
an
that are
agent.
circulating saying
He's got
not
an
going
agent
to.
that right now is telling him, dude, I quit if you don't show up.
But
Because
Ruben,
you're giving your money away. He's not gonna do that.
No,
This
not
team
at all.
got themselves backed up into a corner they can't get out of. And the
Here's
only way
my-
they're gonna get out of it is to try to pay their way out of it.
I understand that, Ruben, but
You
here's
just don't
my-
like me. You hate the guy. Anything that happens, they could trade and get the number 1 pick in the draft, and you still have a problem with that.
No,
I mean, I love Mayfield, so I love Baker, but
You'd still have a
Obviously.
problem with it.
obviously it's a ship that sailed,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
there's
right,
there's
right.
no going
Yeah,
going back
There's
on
no
it.
going back. That's, I mean,
But
it is
if
what
you
it is.
get
But the
if
kid's
you
not
get
stupid.
6, I think that would be good. But I also think it made me think about it more, and I've talked about it a little bit. But I would also kind of agree with Joey. I might rather look at 8 with Atlanta because I think Atlanta would be a little bit more ears to it because they did sign Mariota, and he
Mhm.
was in because Vrabel's OC did go to Atlanta, so he's going to be playing in that friendly offense where they did use him as a quarterback when he was spent time in Tennessee. And I think that would also spark a lot of competition to see who could really go for it. And you're getting
6,
targets
8,
in that area too.
Okay.
so Ruben,
6,
here's
8,
my-
tomato. 6 or 8 doesn't matter.
But I think now you let a little bit of things go. And now if you're at 8 rather than 6, where the Giants have 2 picks
Mhm.
in the
And
first
Jets-
round with 5 and 7, well, just with 5 and 7 before 8. So the
Mhm.
Giants have 5 and 7. Now you see if they take Sauce. Now you see if they take Thibodeau. Now you see if they take Hamilton, and you're
Mhm.
sitting with a little bit more less panic. You're a little bit more calm and collective, and you can kind of make a better decision without letting a guy pass like Thibodeau at 6 or like Hamilton at 6, because Hamilton, in my eyes, is the number 1 overall talent. I don't care injury or not; he's the best damn player in the draft.
Mhm.
But besides that point, I think if you go to 8 rather than 6,
Mhm.
you give yourself a better chance to make a for sure shoe-in pick for your team in the future.
Right,
So-
and you gotta remember too, that if the Browns do something ballsy like that, they're telling us that they got Clowney already signed.
Mhm.
For sure.
Yeah. I agree with you on that. And Ruben, here's my thing. I'm not a Baker hater.
Don't like him.
It's just,
I'm not a Chinese. I don't hate Chinese food. I just don't like it.
it's more just that my attitude changed about him as I
Oh.
watched his play. But here's my
Was
thing:
that before or after the injury?
a little bit of both.
Oh, okay. So it can't be a little bit of both.
It actually can, but whatever. But as much as I love your thinking of trying to trade up to that number 6 spot or the number 8 pick, I trust me, I love it. I don't know if the Browns have the draft capital
They don't need the draft capital.
to do that.
Josh, they don't need the draft capital. This is a different NFL, man. This NFL is about money.
Exactly. Exactly. They got to put
This
fans in the
National
seat.
Football League is about money. The Carolina Panthers, the Seattle Seahawks, Atlanta Falcons, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't give a shit what team you're talking about. The only reason they haven't gone after Baker Mayfield is not because of how far he can throw the ball or he can't throw it. It's because he's got $18 million hanging over his head.
Oh, wait, real quick, guys. Kevin,
Yeah.
do you think there's a shot in blue hell that even if we pay the 18 million, we're somehow getting the 6th pick?
Doubtful.
I
Not
don't.
That sounds good for me because the last time I said it, it was impossible. Now it got up to doubtful.
Trust me. Yeah, you're moving up. It's moving up.
I will say this, Ruben. I will make on air so everyone can hear. If somehow the Cleveland Browns trade Baker Mayfield, even paying his 18 million and move into a top 10 pick, I will buy you whatever Browns jersey you want this year.
Hey,
And
that's both of us. Hey, you
no,
gotta get us partner.
No, this is Ruben. No, this is Ruben.
Oh,
You guys can cut it in half and each wear a half. I don't care.
I want to.
And then and on top of that, if the Browns take Christian Harris in the 2nd round, I will also buy you.
If they get to number 6, then Christian Harris, unfortunately, is a
you
moot
have 2 chances to win.
all I
Right here.
remember is all I keep thinking about this, man. Is just the New Orleans Saints gave their entire draft for Ricky Williams. Guy. And it worked. It was all about money, man. Yeah, you're gonna give me all these picks. Come on with it. It has happened before. Stranger things have happened, man.
I do agree that
Especially now in this day and age of the NFL when value. Oh, wait a minute. Baker Mayfield was bad last week, but you're gonna pay his $18 million. Let's have a little talk here.
I just can't.
And you're gonna give me the rest of
can't.
your draft?
I can't see. I mean, I don't know. I
Let me
can't
ask you-
I
let me
can't
ask
see
you-
getting
let
the
me
top 10
ask
for
you,
Baker.
and let me ask you and Joe this, both Joeys. Thibodeau, probably the best talent out there. Even Kyle Hamilton. If you got a chance, let's forget about my wide receivers. If you have a chance to pull this deal off and move up to number 6, would it be worth giving Baker Mayfield and the rest of your draft for Thibodeau?
For Thibodeau?
Yeah.
Yes. If you don't sign Clowney.
That I think that's where we don't know. But my biggest thing is I just cannot imagine a team giving up a top 10 pick for Baker Mayfield. And
They will. You just have to throw. I
Dude,
genuinely do agree with Ruben, and
I
I
bet
love
you
the
will.
way that he thinks about this because at the end of the day, and I've said this on my podcast too. I've said it numerous times. At the end of the day, major sports in this day and age is a business. It's all about money, and it's all about how many fans that you can put in the seats so that everybody can get their paychecks. And if the Browns are willing to pay 18 million of Baker Mayfield's contract and send them to 6, 8, wherever, anywhere in the top 10 to go give them to somebody who needs them, they'll accept it with the 2nd round pick. And you throw in a kicker, whether they need, right there, Seattle needs a quarterback and a running back. You give them Dearness Johnson, you give them Baker Mayfield, and you pay for his whole contract, and you give him the 44th overall pick. I guarantee you that you get number 9 overall, where Denver had that pick at. And I guarantee you that you're probably taking the 1st overall wide receiver in this year's class. And I guarantee you that Thibodeau and Hamilton are probably not on the board either.
They're gone. Yeah, they're gone by then. Here's another thing you got to take into consideration too. Again, I'm bringing up Carolina or whoever does this. They're getting Baker Mayfield free because after this season, they can do whatever the hell they want with him.
That's true.
He's gone. Or keep him, depending on how your team works out. We're not asking for anything in return. The only thing that I want is to move up, and I'll pay you $18 million to do that. The
Yeah.
NFL's got no problem with that. The NFL has no problem with the Browns picking up 15 out of the 18 million. The union sure the hell ain't gonna have a problem with it because their players getting paid. Pay the whole damn thing.
Kev, do you think that Seattle
See what
one
you
is
got paid
realistic?
to- You got the entire NFL already pissed off at you because you signed Watson and Denzel Ward's and these monstrous contracts that they're gonna pay for. Piss them off a little more.
I
Kev, do you think
love
that
your
Seattle trade
thinking,
is
Ruben.
realistic?
Huh?
What was
Does-
that? I'm
does
sorry.
any-
Again, that
Do you
could
guys
be-
think that Seattle trade is realistic?
I think
Giving
it's realistic. and I
Johnson,
think-
Baker, and your second round pick, do you think they would accept it for 9th overall?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think you might need to kick in one more thing.
What? Go, so give him the third.
Probably another pick.
Yeah,
Give him one of your 2 third rounders.
But I
I
think
love-
Yeah, you could still take Bryant then too.
Ruben, I love your enthusiasm.
But again, you gotta, you
about
got
that.
to, and Clarence, that could possibly be something's going on. That could possibly be the reason why they told reporters stay the hell away from my
and
office.
that's exactly what I was thinking, because I feel like they've got enough. I don't want to call it bad press, but they've been in the news a lot lately.
No, they
So,
had-
so the way to not let any leaks get out, and to not have anybody know what the hell they're doing, y'all just stay the hell away from the facility on day one.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with the player. This stuff here, this got nothing to do with the player any longer. This has got to do with the finances of the whole situation here.
All right, we gotta wrap this up.
We do. Sorry.
I hope they do something. I hope they do something big tomorrow, because as of right now, it's going to be a pretty boring first round for Browns fans.
We'll get up there, man. And with the
But,
6th pick in the NFL draft, the Cleveland Browns.
Hey, I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
Jahan
right.
Dotson.
Yay! I like it. Okay, I'll do it. I'll do it now, Ruben. I'll do it.
Everybody's gonna be on pins and needles at pick number 5 tomorrow. I guarantee all of us on this is gonna
Yeah,
be like,
we will now.
Uh-huh.
All right, guys. I appreciate you all coming on. Very informative. A lot of good stuff. Hopefully, this is the first of many for us. So,
We'll do another one when we draft Olave with the 7th pick in the draft.
all right. I hope everybody enjoys the draft. And once again, make sure you're following all of our podcasts. Make sure you're subscribing. Amazon Music, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast from. Follow all our shows. We're doing a lot of good stuff, and we have a lot of big plans, a lot of big stuff coming up this year. So make sure you stick with us and join along for the ride. So once again, everybody, I appreciate you guys coming on, and everybody enjoyed the draft, and go Browns.
Fantastic.
Browns.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Peace,
Good to see
guys.
all of you, man.